Good afternoon. My name is Pat McCracken here at the Rocky Mountain Raptor program. And today is Wednesday, and we are having our Wednesday afternoon virtual program. So welcome to our program. Today we're going to talk about wonderful winter visitors. And we do have here in Colorado, we have a lot. A lot of people come here for skiing, but a few animals come here to spend the winter. They're not really snowbirds because who would come to Colorado to spend the winter? All of us want to go to Florida or to Texas or something like that. But we have a few birds that come during the winter to spend the winter with us. And just to list them off, we've got the merlin, who's a falcon that comes down from the north and spends the winter with us. She's a bird. They're a bird eater. And then we had the rough-legged hawk, which comes down from all the way up at the Arctic Ocean, which is really quite a beautiful bird. And then we have the bald eagle, which we have with us today, which is really special. So I thought that was really wonderful to have a bald eagle today, because it's always everyone's favorite to have a bald eagle. This is our female bald eagle. She's 26 years old. She came to us 24 years ago as a bird who had been wounded in a gunshot. She had a bullet pass through near her stomach, injure her stomach, and into her left elbow, her left wing, and so she was pretty severely injured. Part of her, what we would call the hand, a veterinary would call it the metacarpal, and so she had to have that removed. She recovered from that and became one of our educational ambassadors. She's been with us for very many years. In 2008, it's a little bit like COVID. Some birds pass through, they get West Nile virus, doesn't bother them at all. It lingers and it gives them long-term damage. So she was one of the unfortunate few that has long-term damage. She lost the sight in one of her eyes, her right eye. She's blind in her right eye. And she also developed bad blood feather issues. Which is the reason that she lost the rest of her hand, her metacarpal, in order to resolve her feather problems. So she's here with us today, and she looks absolutely gorgeous, as you can see her. Now, bald eagles, she weighs about almost 11 pounds. Bald eagles, as you can see, are really easy to identify if they're adults. So this is a mature bald eagle, and she's easy to identify because she's got that big white head. She's got a really flashy white tail. She's got yellow eyes. She's got that massive beak. If you can get when she turns her head, if you can see the size of that beak, it's massive. And she's also got yellow feet, and she's got naked feet, yellow naked feet. Now, if she were a first year, she would look exactly like a golden eagle, except she would have yellow feet and she would have that massive beak. You would see a beak that's about 3 or 4 inches longer than on a golden eagle. But on first look, you'd think you're looking at a golden eagle. And each year, each molt, she gets closer. She starts to get more white in the head, and as her wings. As she flies, you can see more white in her wings, and each year she gets further and further, and you can tell a first year, second year, third year, fourth year, and the glorious fifth year that you see in our bald eagle here. So the bald eagle, it's always been very special relationship with Americans, and at the same time a very difficult relationship with Americans. It was in 1782 the Continental Congress nominated and adopted her as our national emblem. But then right after that, her population just crashed because we were a young farming and agriculture and ranching country, and we thought all raptors, eagles, hawks, were detrimental to our product, and so we did our best to get rid of them. So the populations really fell. When I was a kid, I'm 70, I just turned 70. When I was a kid, if you asked a classroom of kids, have you ever seen a bald eagle? There would not be one hand that would raise. No, they were so rare when I was a kid. In 1940, Congress passed the Bald Eagle Protection Act to protect the bald eagle in the lower 48, below the 40th parallel. And it just so happens the 40th parallel passes through Boulder, Colorado. So it's from about us south is where the year-round bald eagles breed and live year-round, and the northern ones up to Canada and the Arctic were deemed there was many more of them, so they protected the lower ones. That was then later amended to include the entire country, continental United States, and it was also amended to include the golden eagle, because as I mentioned, a first-year golden eagle looks exactly like a bald eagle, and so they weren't being protected. So the young ones were not being protected. The bald eagle was on the endangered species list from 1966 to 2007, which was really important because the bald eagle suffered the same issues that the peregrine falcon did, and it had to do with DDT, the pesticide. DDT has a really notorious history. In the 1930s, it was discovered that it could be produced in great quantity, and as World War II happened, and we were in the Pacific Theater, we were losing huge amounts of soldiers to malaria and other diseases caused by mosquito-borne illness. So they started producing in mass DDT, and the soldiers thought it was the greatest thing since sliced bread. They were spraying their sleeping bags, they were spraying their blankets, and they thought it was just great. Well, at the same time, people were researching the detrimental effects of DDT, which are really serious. And so it was in 1972, it was outlawed, which was a really good idea because it's really deadly. And since then, there was a long effort to help the bald eagle to come back as a population, and it's been a huge success story. So we have and I go into schools today. I go into schools and I say, how many of you seen a bald eagle? And everybody raises their hands. So it's really wonderful. And I was talking to a big class of students outside, and we were talking about birds. I think I had an owl on my hand, and we were sitting around. There was probably about 15 kids, and I look up above me, and there's a great big bird. And we were near a lake, so it could have been a vulture, it could have been an eagle. And I said, look at this bird, let's see if we can figure out what it is. And just then, she flashed her big white tail at us. And the sun bounced off of it, and everybody went, ooh, look at that big bald eagle. It was just great. So the bald eagle's breeding range is up in Alaska and northern Canada, and that's where the majority of them breed. They're year-round in the U.S. in aquatic habitats. So that would be around lakes and around river systems. Come fall, when the rivers and the lakes start to freeze over, the bald eagles, they start to migrate south. And so some of the immatures will actually migrate north, and some of the matures as well, to the Pacific coast or the Atlantic coast, and they'll actually go north up to those because they're year-round on the coast, And in come December and January, we start to see huge amounts of bald eagles here in northern Colorado where we are, which is really wonderful and why I wanted to talk about it today. Last week it was 60 degrees at my house, and I hope the birds didn't think, oh well, that's how they tell the weather. They tell it's time to go home when the weather gets good, because the lakes and the rivers are starting to thaw. And I hope they didn't take it for serious, because the next couple of weeks is going to be really cold here. So I think we'll probably have the bald eagles for a little bit longer. I hope they didn't leave already. But we are going to lose them, and then we'll remain the bald eagles that live here year round. And they do live year round on our lakes all over the country, in Florida, down on the Gulf Coast, in Colorado, but they're always near water, near a big lake. They nest in huge trees. They have the huge nest, as you've probably all seen. So that's the bald eagle, and we think it's wonderful to have them here. The record age of a bald eagle is 28 years old, and in captivity, that was a wild animal. In captivity, the record is 36. So we can count on having our lovely bald eagle for many more years. She gets treated like a queen around here, I can tell you that. She gets treats. She gets worked just about every day. You can log on to our YouTube, our Facebook page, and you can see some videos of her getting weighed, and people working with her, and you can see how noisy she is. And one thing I might add on bald eagles is, if you've watched the John Wayne movies and heard the eagle, I forgot to bring it. If you watch they'll have a video of a beautiful red-tailed hawk screaming, and they'll say, "Look at that eagle," and it's not an eagle in those old cowboy shows. It's a red-tailed hawk, and an eagle. I'm sure she won't do it now. But an eagle has a much less luxurious, like, she's not doing it. So they're much less beautiful than you'll see in the cowboy shows. But what we're going to talk about in a few minutes is migration. Humans associate the seasons with birds. So spring is with spring birds. You know, that robin that starts in March or April. That robin that shows up and is outside your bedroom and starts singing at 5 o'clock in the morning, and your first reaction is, oh, who in the world is waking me up? And then you think, oh, it's a robin. Although they're here year round, they're not here in the numbers they are in the spring and the summer, and they're starting to mate, and they just call endlessly with the same notes, but your second reaction is it's springtime. Right, and then in the fall, the geese are coming over and they're honking, and you know it's fall. And then in the spring, the vultures are coming back up, and in the fall, the vultures are leaving. And in the summer, you have all the beautiful summer birds, the hummingbirds and the grosbeaks, and it's really beautiful. So half of all birds migrate, and our ancestors never really understood migration. They wondered, well, where did the birds go? Some people thought they flew to the moon. Some people thought they migrated underneath the water at the bottom of lakes. It took a long time for them to figure out where they went. But there's three important things that birds do in each year. One is breeding. Breeding is extremely difficult. A bird has to lay an egg, so an eagle has to create out of its body all of that calcium that steals out of its body the calcium that's in its system to create that egg and lay that egg, and then it sits on that egg for about 30 days on the average for raptors, and then it sits on the babies for about 30 days before they start branching. Now, eggs are hard to produce, and they're extremely difficult on the body, particularly if a bird were to have to relay the eggs, like some birds do if their nests are disturbed. And they can do it 2 or 3 times, and by the third time, the bird that's really bad on the bird to produce that much calcium. It's just raiding their body out of that calcium. So it's hard on them. The second thing that's really difficult for them is molting. So the birds, as fall starts to come around, and as you know, the Earth is on an axis, and it rotates on an axis. And as during the summertime, the North Pole is pointed to the sun, so we get direct sunlight, and so the sun is really heavy, really hot, and during the winter we rotate away, and the sun, we're only getting indirect sunlight in the northern hemisphere. So birds, their bodies can sense this indirect light, this change in the light, and that change in the light begins their molting process. And it also starts them eating, because they know they're going to migrate. So they really need to start pumping their bodies up, getting a lot of extra fat on them, because their fat is their gas tank, their gas for their trip. And they need to get their best feathers in, so they molt their feathers, what they're going to do that year, so they have really good feathers. And then the third difficult thing the birds do, or at least half the birds in the world, is they migrate. Now, migration is a very difficult thing. Many birds are lost during migration. It's a long, arduous process, and some birds decide to stay. The main reason birds migrate is food and for nesting sites. So most of our songbirds originated in the tropics, and as they evolved over thousands and thousands of years, they found that there was more opportunity to nest. Even though there was more insects and more food near the equator, as the seasons changed, there was more opportunity and greater space to fly north and go through that arduous process of flying north and find those huge open areas. Like our Swainson hawks are right now, they're down in Argentina, and they've changed their diet. They're eating grasshoppers, and they're living in flocks. But it'd be very hard to mate, because they really need their own space, and they protect their space. So they really can't fill out and mate where they are. So they can fly back up here and use all the open spaces of the grass plains to find a nest and to mate. So that's really great for them. But migrating is very difficult. So they do it because they're so how do birds navigate? People often, we see a lot of migration going on, and we know that they migrate, but how do they find their way in migration? And I think the easiest way to say it is it's just magic. That would be the easiest way, because we don't understand exactly how they do it. And what we do understand, it literally is magic. There's a lot of things we don't know, we don't understand about birds, like we can't tell a male from a female unless they lay an egg, or we weigh them and we know the females are larger, so we can assume that what a male and a female. Now, I can tell the difference between a male and a female from a block away. If I see a guy walking, I can tell by the way the guy walks, the way he holds himself. I know that's a guy. And we know that birds can tell male from female. We think it's because they can see in the near infrared, near ultraviolet, and so they're probably different colors. Now, we don't know this for sure, but we do believe it's the truth. And so birds have a lot more senses that are at play than humans have in senses. And they can also, as they begin to migrate, they can sense through the Earth's magnetic field. They know where north is, they know where south is. They can navigate by the sunset, they can navigate by the sun. And it's also projected they can navigate by smells, going over large pine forests. So they will memorize the smells on their migrations. So we don't really understand exactly how migration, all the ways they do it, but the more and more we study the birds, we learn more and more about the senses they use and how they are able to track the Earth's magnetic forces and determine their way north and south. Now the bald eagle, she'll start migrating when she senses that the water is freezing up north, and and the food is going to be reduced. So she's going to take that long trip to the south. She's got the most beautiful wings. They're perfect wings for the proportion of them. They're long and they're thick, and she's got great lift, and she can soar incredibly well. So it doesn't take a lot of work for her to migrate south. She flies and catches a thermal, and she takes that thermal up to as high as that thermal will take her, and then she'll glide down until she catches the next thermal. And so she just sort of meanders down south, and she's looking around for open space that she might find the food and the terrain that she can use. And she'll stay here until she senses that it's time to go back. But bald eagles are pretty sharp. They don't meander back. They shoot back. They go back really quick. When they're ready to go back, they go back because they're going back to find nest sites. And the male is the first one to go back, and he'll go back and he'll find hopefully the same nesting site that he had last year. And as he won't get there, or maybe the first, and they might have to have some tussles on who gets that nest. And then the female comes back, and she joins him. I talked to a wildlife officer in Florida, whose job it was to fly around the swamps in Florida, the Everglades, and look and take notes on which nests the bald eagles were using. And he said it wasn't unusual to go by a nest that had a male and a female making a home in that nest, and the next time he came over it, there was a great horned owl in it, which is really quite amazing, because the great horned owl only weighs a third of what these guys weigh, but they're absolutely ferocious, and they attack at night, and they chase these. And so it's possible that there is a lot of competition for these nest sites. So migration is a really difficult thing for these birds, and we're about to lose our bald eagles here in northern Colorado, and I will regret to see them because I see them a lot, but I'm glad that we'll have some of our residents around. So I would like to remind you that we're a nonprofit organization. You can log on to rmrp.org, and you can learn more about us. You can also check out our Facebook page, where we have lots of videos on our Facebook page. We actually have a very vultural gala going on right now, which is in place of our normal annual gala, which is a fundraiser where we raise money for our efforts for providing the second chance of freedom to all the raptors we work with, which is about 350 birds a year. So we spend a lot of time and a lot of resources, and it's February, so the owls are nesting, and the owls are producing those cute little great horned owl kids, and pretty soon we're going to be overrun with great horned owl little kids, and we're going to have to raise all these little owls, and they eat a rat each a day or so, and a rat costs $2. So if you can imagine, we might have 15 great horned owl babies, and we might keep them for 5 months. So and we take really good care of them. So if you'd like to help us with our efforts, log on and participate in our Very Vulture virtual gala. I would also like to note that this weekend is the Great Backyard Bird Count. You can log on to birdcount.org, which is sponsored by the Audubon Society, and it goes from Friday to Monday, and they will give you a link that's February 12th through the 15th. From that link, you can get a little card, and what they want you to do is go out in your backyard and spend at least 15 minutes, or anywhere you want to go. Sit down 15 minutes and write down what birds you see, and then turn it in and participate in the bird count. So that'd be really important to keep those numbers coming. So thank you very much for joining us, and can we have another shot of our bald eagle here? And we'd like to say thank you to Jessica for bringing out our beautiful golden eagle, and we'll see you next week. Thank you very much.